In the misty depths of Marwood Manor, a single silver button, engraved with a crescent moon and rose, sparks a mystery that could unravel a family's darkest secrets. Hercule Poirot, the brilliant detective, arrives to uncover the truth behind a hidden vault, a murder confession, and a traitor lurking within. From a locked library to a forgotten chapel, every clue leads closer to a fortune tainted by blood. Will Poirot's little grey cells reveal the truth before the past destroys the present? Dive into a tale of deception, danger, and discovery in this gripping Agatha Christie-style mystery. Chapter 1. The curious incident at Marwood Manor. The mist hung low over the Devon hills, shrouding the village of St. Mary's Hollow in a veil of silver grey. It was a place where time seemed to pause, where the ancient oaks whispered secrets to the wind, and the narrow lanes wound like threads through a tapestry of forgotten tales. At the heart of this quiet hamlet stood Marwood Manor, a Georgian edifice of weathered stone, its tall windows glinting like watchful eyes against the morning gloom. On this particular October day, the air was crisp with the scent of damp leaves, and the promise of an unraveling mystery. Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective with a mustache as precise as his mind, sat in the compartment of a rattling train bound for St. Mary's Hollow. His polished shoes gleamed, his green eyes sparkled with anticipation, and his hands rested neatly on the silver-headed cane propped against his knee. Beside him, Captain Arthur Hastings, his loyal friend and chronicler, fidgeted with a folded letter, his brow creased with unease. "Really, Poirot," Hastings said, his voice tinged with exasperation, "I don't see why you're so keen on this affair. A button, of all things. It's hardly the stuff of murder or mayhem." Poirot's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile. "Mon cher Hastings, you underestimate the significance of the small. A button, you say? Bah! It is not the button itself, but what it represents. A clue, a cipher, a key to a secret long buried. Sir Reginald Harwood would not summon Hercule Poirot for a trifle." The letter, now creased from Hastings' restless fingers, had arrived at Poirot's London flat the previous evening. Written in a hurried, almost frantic hand, it bore the crest of Marwood Manor and a plea from Sir Reginald Harwood, a man known to Hastings through a mutual acquaintance in the War Office. The message was brief but intriguing. A silver button, discovered in the Manor's library, had thrown the household into disarray. Sir Reginald, a man of wealth and reserve, insisted it held a secret that could undo his family. He begged Poirot's assistance, and Hastings, already a guest at the Manor, had added his own entreaty. "Come at once, old chap. It's dashed queer." The train screeched to a halt at the tiny station of St. Mary's Hollow, and Poirot descended with the grace of a cat, his Homburg hat tilted at a precise angle. Hastings followed, his taller frame slightly stooped under the weight of his friend's suitcase. A horse-drawn trap, arranged by Sir Reginald, awaited them, its driver a taciturn man with a face like weathered oak. The journey to the Manor was silent, save for the creak of wheels and the distant caw of a rook. Poirot's eyes darted across the landscape, noting the hedgerows, the distant church spire, and the looming silhouette of Marwood Manor against the grey sky. The Manor itself was a study in contrasts, grandeur tempered by decay. Ivy clung to its walls like a possessive lover, and the stone steps to the entrance were worn smooth by centuries of footfalls. The great oak door swung open to reveal Sir Reginald Harwood himself, a man of 60 with a gaunt frame and eyes that burned with a restless intensity. His grey hair was thinning, and his hands, though steady, betrayed a slight tremor as he clasped Poirot's outstretched hand. "Monsieur Poirot, I cannot thank you enough for coming," Sir Reginald said, his voice low and urgent. "This is no ordinary matter. I fear it may bring ruin upon us all." Poirot inclined his head, his expression one of polite curiosity. "Ruin, you say? Then let us waste no time. Show me this button, and tell me all." They passed through a cavernous hall adorned with portraits of stern-faced Harwoods, their eyes following the visitors with silent judgment. The air was heavy with the scent of polished wood and old books, and a grandfather clock ticked solemnly. In a corner, Sir Reginald led them to the library, a vast room that seemed to hold the weight of centuries. Tall shelves stretched to the vaulted ceiling, their volumes bound in leather and gilt, their spines cracked with age. A massive fireplace dominated one wall, its hearth cold despite the chill in the air. Above it hung a portrait of a man in Regency attire, his dark eyes fixed on some unseen horizon, his hand clutching a silver button that gleamed with an almost unnatural luster. "There," Sir Reginald said, pointing to a small mahogany table near the center of the room. On it lay the object of their concern, a silver button, no larger than a shilling, its surface engraved with a delicate designer crescent moon entwined with a rose. The craftsmanship was exquisite, each line precise, each curve deliberate. Poirot lifted it with gloved fingers, turning it to catch the light from a nearby window. The button seemed to pulse with a quiet significance, as though it held a story waiting to be told. "It was found yesterday morning," Sir Reginald explained, his voice tight, "by the housemaid Elisa when she came to dust. It was lying there, on the carpet, near that desk." He gestured to a heavy piece of furniture, its surface cluttered with papers and an inkstand. "I know every item in this house, Monsieur Poirot. This button does not belong to anyone. Here not my wife, not my son, not my niece, nor any of the servants. And yet, it is no mere trinket. It is dangerous." Poirot's mustache twitched, a sign that his little grey cells were already at work. "Dangerous, you say? And why is that, Sir Reginald? What does this button signify?" Sir Reginald's eyes darted to the portrait above the fireplace. "That is Lord Edmund Harwood, my ancestor. He built this manor in 1790, family legend speaks. Of a secret he guarded, one tied to that button. He was a man of wealth, but his fortune came from questionable means. Smuggling, perhaps, or worse. The button is said to be a key to that secret, but no one has ever found it. My father spent his life searching, and it drove him to ruin. I thought it a myth until now." Poirot's gaze followed Sir Reginald's to the portrait. The resemblance between the living man and his ancestor was striking. The same sharp cheekbones, the same haunted expression. "And who resides in this house, Sir Reginald? Who might have knowledge of this button?" "My wife, Lady Eleanor, a woman of delicate health but steadfast loyalty. My son Charles, a young man with more ambition than sense. My niece, Clara Trent, who came to live with us after her parents' death. And a guest, Dr. Malcolm Vance, a historian studying our family archives. The servants are loyal, most have been with us for years, but I trust none of them with this." Nodded, his mind cataloguing each name, each potential motive. "Very well, let us examine the scene of this curious discovery." The library was a treasure trove of clues, though none were immediately apparent. The carpet, a rich burgundy, showed no signs of disturbance, its pile undisturbed save for a faint indentation where the button had lain. The desk was a chaos of papers, letters, bills, and a ledger that hinted at financial strain. Poirot's keen eyes noted a faint scratch on the desk's edge, barely visible, as though something had been pried open. The windows were latched, the sills free of dust, suggesting they had not been opened recently. The fireplace, cold and ashless, offered no secrets, but Poirot lingered by the portrait, studying the silver button in Lord Edmund's hand. It was identical to the one in his possession, down to the smallest detail. Hastings, ever practical, broke the silence. "It's a fine button, Poirot, but surely it's just a lost trinket. Perhaps a guest dropped it years ago." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Nan, Hastings, a button does not appear in a locked library, in a house where no one claims it, without purpose. This is no accident. Someone placed it here, or it was revealed by some action. We must discover why." Sir Reginald, who had been watching Poirot's inspection with growing agitation, spoke up. "Monsieur Poirot, I beg you to be discreet. If this secret, whatever it is, becomes known, it could ruin my family's name. The Harwoods have enemies, old grudges, business rivals. I fear this button is a warning." Poirot's expression softened, though his eyes remained sharp. "Fear not, Sir Reginald. Hercule Poirot is the soul of discretion. But I must know all. Tell me of your household, of their habits, their secrets." Sir Reginald hesitated, then began. "Lady Eleanor," he said, "was a woman of refined tastes but frail nerves, often confined to her rooms by migraines. Charles, his only son, was a charming but reckless young man, prone to gambling and debts that strained the family's dwindling fortune. Clara Trent, his niece, was a spirited girl of 22, intelligent but headstrong, with a keen interest in the family's history. Dr. Malcolm Vance, the historian, had arrived 3 months prior, invited to catalogue the Harwood archives for a university project. He was a quiet man, scholarly but guarded, with a penchant for late-night work in the library. "And the servants?" Poirot asked. "The usual complement," Sir Reginald replied. "Mrs. Baxter, the housekeeper, has been with us for 30 years. Eliza, the housemaid, is young but diligent. The butler, Grayson, is a model of propriety. There's also a cook, a gardener, and a few others, but none have access to the library without my permission." Poirot nodded, his mind already weaving a tapestry of possibilities. "And this library, it is locked at night?" "Always," Sir Reginald said. "I keep the key myself." "Then we must consider how this button came to be here," Poirot mused. "A locked room, a mysterious object, a family with secrets. It is a puzzle worthy of Hercule Poirot." As the afternoon waned, Poirot requested to meet the household. Sir Reginald arranged for tea in the drawing-room, a space as grand as the library but warmer, with chintz curtains and a roaring fire. Lady Eleanor Harwood entered first, a delicate figure in a lavender gown, her face pale and her hands clasped tightly. She greeted Poirot with a nervous smile, her eyes flickering to her husband as though seeking reassurance. "Monsieur Poirot, I hope you can put this nonsense to rest," she said, her voice soft but strained. "This button has upset Reginald terribly. I fear for his health." Poirot bowed. "Madame, I shall do all in my power to bring clarity. Tell me, have you ever seen this button before?" She shook her head, her fingers twisting a lace handkerchief. "Never. It's unsettling, like something from a ghost story." Charles Harwood entered next, his handsome face marred by a scowl. He was tall, with his father's sharp features but none of his reserve. "This is a lot of fuss over nothing," he said, tossing his head. A button, father, really? We've bigger problems, like the bank breathing down our necks. Sir Reginald's face darkened, but he said nothing. Clara Trent followed her. Green eyes bright with curiosity. She wore a simple but elegant dress, her auburn hair pinned loosely. Monsieur Poirot, I've read of your cases, she said, her voice lively. I hope you find this as fascinating as I do. The Harwoods have such a colourful history. Poirot smiled. Mademoiselle, a history is only as colourful as its secrets. Perhaps you know something of this button. Clara's smile faltered. Only what Uncle Reginald has told me, old stories about Lord Edmund and his mysterious fortune. I thought they were just tales to amuse children. Dr. Malcolm Vance was the last to arrive, a slight man with thinning hair and wire-rimmed spectacles. He carried a notebook, his fingers stained with ink. Monsieur Poirot, I'm merely a guest here, he said, his tone measured. I study documents, not buttons, but I'll help however I can. Poirot observed them all, his eyes darting from one face to another, noting the tension in Lady Eleanor's posture, the defiance in Charles's stance, the curiosity in Clara's gaze, and the guardedness in Vance's demeanour. The servants, hovering at the edges of the room, were equally scrutinized. Mrs. Baxter, stern and efficient. Grayson, the butler, with his impeccable posture, and Eliza, the young housemaid, who avoided Poirot's gaze. Tea was served, but the conversation was stilted. Poirot, with his characteristic charm, steered it toward the button. This object, he said, holding it aloft, is no ordinary trinket. Its design, the crescent moon and rose, suggests a purpose. Does it stir any memories, Mies Amos? The room fell silent. Lady Eleanor's teacup rattled in its saucer. Charles stared at the floor. Clara's eyes narrowed, and Vance adjusted his glasses, a nervous tick. No one spoke, but the air was thick with unspoken thoughts. As the gathering dispersed, Poirot lingered in the drawing room, his mind racing. The button was no accident, he was certain. It was a message, a challenge, or perhaps a warning. But from whom and to whom? The library held the key, but the manor itself was a labyrinth of secrets, its inhabitants each a piece of the puzzle. That evening, as the household retired, Poirot returned to the library alone. The room was silent save for the ticking of a clock and the distant howl of the wind. He stood before the portrait of Lord Edmund, studying the silver button in the man's hand. The resemblance to the one found was uncanny, but there was something more, a faint irregularity in the frame, a hairline crack where none should be. Poirot's fingers traced the edge, and with a gentle press, he felt a click. The frame shifted, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a single sheet of parchment, yellowed with age, its ink faded but legible. It was a letter, dated 1792, from Lord Edmund to an unnamed brother. The words were cryptic, written in haste. The button is the key, but beware the cost of its truth. The crescent and rose guard are shame. Keep it hidden, lest it destroy us. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Mon Dieu, he murmured. The little grey cells, they are never wrong. He replaced the letter and closed the compartment, his mind alight with possibilities. The button was no mere relic, was a cipher, a link to a past that someone in Marwood Manor wished to uncover or to bury forever. As he left the library, the portrait of Lord Edmund seemed to watch him, its eyes holding a secret that only Hercule Poirot could unravel. Chapter 2. The library's silent witness. The morning sun struggled to pierce the heavy mist that enveloped Marwood Manor, casting a pale ethereal glow through the tall windows of the library. Hercule Poirot stood at the room's center, his small, fastidious figure a stark contrast to the grandeur of the oak-paneled walls and towering bookshelves. The air was thick with the scent of old leather and wax polish, and the silence was broken only by the faint creak of a floorboard beneath his polished shoes. The silver button, that curious object of intrigue, rested in his gloved hand, its crescent moon and rose emblem glinting faintly in the muted light. Beside him, Captain Arthur Hastings shifted uneasily, his practical mind grappling with the enigma that had drawn them to this remote corner of Devon. "Really, Poirot," Hastings said, his voice tinged with impatience, "it's just a button. Surely you're not suggesting someone broke into a locked library to leave it here as some sort of prank?" Poirot's green eyes sparkled with a mixture of amusement and reproach. "A prank, mon ami? Non, non, Hercule Poirot does not travel across counties for pranks. This button, it is no mere trinket. It is a message, a challenge, perhaps even a warning. And in this room, we shall find the first threads of its truth." The library was a magnificent space, its high ceiling adorned with intricate plasterwork, its shelves groaning under the weight of centuries-old tomes. A massive fireplace dominated one wall, its hearth cold and ashless, above which hung the imposing portrait of Lord Edmund Harwood, the manor's founder. The portrait's subject, clad in Regency attire, stared down with a stern expression, his hand clutching a silver button identical to the one Poirot held. The resemblance was uncanny, and Poirot's mustache twitched as he noted the detail. Sir Reginald Harwood had joined them, his gaunt frame rigid with tension. "Monsieur Poirot, have you found anything?" he asked, his voice low and strained. "This button, it unsettles me more with each passing hour." Poirot turned, his expression one of calm authority. "Patience, Sir Reginald. The library, it is the heart of this mystery. Let us examine it with care." He began his inspection with the precision of a watchmaker, pacing the room in measured steps. The burgundy carpet, thick and well-trodden, showed no signs of disturbance, save for a faint indentation where the housemaid, Eliza, had found the button. Poirot knelt, his magnifying glass catching the light as he studied the spot. The fibers were undisturbed, suggesting no struggle or scuffle had occurred. The mahogany desk nearby was a clutter of papers, letters, bills, and a ledger that hinted at financial strain, but nothing seemed out of place. Yet Poirot's keen eye caught a faint scratch on the desk's edge, barely visible, as though something had been pried open or scraped against it. "Euro," he murmured, running a gloved finger along the mark. "This desk, it has seen recent activity, perhaps not so innocent." Hastings, peering over his shoulder, frowned. "It's just a scratch, Poirot. Could be from anything, a pen, a paperweight." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "To you, perhaps, Hastings. But to Hercule Poirot, a scratch is a whisper of intent. We shall see what it says." He moved to the windows, their heavy drapes drawn back to reveal the misty gardens beyond. The sills were clean, free of dust, and the latches secure, suggesting no one had entered or exited through them. The fireplace offered no clues either. Its grate was pristine, as though no fire had been lit in weeks. Poirot lingered longest by the portrait of Lord Edmund, his eyes tracing the lines of the silver button in the man's hand. The frame was heavy, its gilt edges worn but intact, yet something about it drew his attention. A slight misalignment, a faint shadow where the frame met the wall. "Sir Reginald," Poirot said, turning to his host, "this portrait, it is original to the manner." "Yes, sir," Reginald replied, his voice heavy with unease. "Painted in 1791, a year after Lord Edmund built this house. He was a man of secrets, or so the family stories go. Smuggling, they say, though no one ever proved it." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "And this button, it is the same as the one in his hand, Nan?" Sir Reginald nodded, his face pale. "Identical. That's what frightens me. It's as though the past has reached out to haunt us." Poirot said nothing, but his mind was a whirl of possibilities. He stepped closer to the portrait, his fingers brushing the frame. With a gentle press, he felt a subtle give, and a faint click echoed in the silent room. The frame swung outward, revealing a hidden compartment carved into the wall. Inside was a single sheet of parchment, yellowed and brittle, its ink faded but legible. Poirot carefully extracted it, his movements precise, and held it to the light. The letter, dated 1792, was addressed to my dear brother and signed by Lord Edmund Harwood. Its words were cryptic, written in a hurried hand. "The button is the key to our salvation, but also our shame. Guard it well, and let no one know the truth of the crescent and rose. The vault lies hidden, but its discovery will bring ruin. Trust no one, not even those closest to you." Poirot's moustache curled with satisfaction. Voila, the first piece of the puzzle. Hastings, peering over his shoulder, gaped. "Good Lord, Poirot, a hidden letter. This is like something out of a Gothic novel." Sir Reginald's face drained of colour. "My father spoke of such a letter, but I thought it a myth. He spent his life searching for this vault, or whatever it is. It drove him to madness." Poirot folded the letter carefully and slipped it into his pocket. "This vault, Sir Reginald, it is no myth. The button and this letter, they are linked, but to what? A fortune, a secret, or perhaps a crime?" He turned his attention back to the library, his mind cataloguing every detail. The room was locked each night, Sir Reginald had said, with the key kept on his person. Yet the button had appeared, unclaimed by any in the household. The servants, Mrs. Baxter, the stern housekeeper, Grayson, the impeccable butler, and Eliza, the timid housemaid, had access to the library only under supervision. The other residents, Lady Eleanor, Charles, Clara, Trent, and Dr. Malcolm Van Seach, had their own reasons to frequent the room. Or so Poirot suspected. "Tell me, Sir Reginald," Poirot said, his tone deceptively casual, "who was in the library the day before the button was found?" Sir Reginald frowned, thinking, "I was here in the morning, going over accounts. Charles came in briefly, looking for a book, though he's not much of a reader. Clara often sits here to sketches, fond of the light from the windows. Dr. Vance spends hours with the archives, but I don't recall if he was here that day. Eleanor rarely comes to the library. It's too drafty for her." Poirot nodded, his eyes narrowing. "And the servants, Elisa dusts daily under Mrs. Baxter's watch. Grayson brings tea or messages. No one else, to my knowledge." Poirot paced the room once more, his steps deliberate. A locked room, a button that belongs to no one, a letter hidden for over a century. This is no accident, Mies Amos. Someone in this house knows more than they say. Hastings, ever the skeptic, shook his head. But who, Poirot? And why leave the button here? If it's so important, why not keep it hidden? Poirot's smile was enigmatic. That, Hastings, is the question. Perhaps it was left to be found, to stir fear or curiosity. Perhaps it was dropped by mistake, or perhaps it is a challenge. A gauntlet thrown down to Hercule Poirot. He turned to Sir Reginald. I must speak with your household, one by one. Their words, their gestures, they will reveal much. And I must see the archives Dr. Vance studies. The past, it seems, is not so silent as it appears. Sir Reginald hesitated, his eyes flickering with unease. Very well, Monsieur Poirot, but I beg you, be discreet. The Harwood name is all we have left, and this secret, whatever it is, could destroy it. Poirot bowed slightly. Discretion is my creed, Sir Reginald, but the truth, it will not be denied. As they left the library, Poirot's mind was alight with possibilities. The letter spoke of a vault, a secret tied to the crescent and rose. The button was no mere ornament. It was a key, but to what? A fortune, as family legend suggested, or something darker, something that had driven Lord Edmund's brother to caution and fear. The library had spoken, but its whispers were only the beginning. The truth, Poirot knew, lay in the shadows of Marwood Manor, waiting for his little grey cells to bring it into the light. Chapter 3. A Midnight Discovery. The moon hung low over Marwood Manor, its pale light filtering through the heavy drapes of Hercule Poirot's guest room, casting ghostly shadows on the walls. Sleep eluded the little Belgian detective, his mind a whirl of questions sparked by the silver button and the cryptic letter hidden behind Lord Edmund Harwood's portrait. The words of the letter, the button is the key, but beware the cost of its truth, gnawed at him, each phrase a tantalizing fragment of a puzzle yet to be solved. Unable to rest, Poirot donned his silk dressing gown, adjusted his moustache with a practiced flick, and slipped into the darkened corridors of the manor, his polished shoes silent on the polished oak floors. The house was still, save for the occasional creak of settling beams and the distant howl of the wind sweeping across the Devon hills. Poirot's destination was the library, that silent witness to the manor's secrets. But as he passed a shadowed alcove near the grand staircase, a faint sound caught his ear, soft, deliberate creak, as though someone were moving with care. He paused, his green eyes narrowing, and pressed himself against the wall. Blending into the darkness, the sound came again, closer now, from the direction of the library. Poirot moved swiftly, his steps light as a cat's, and reached the heavy oak door just as it closed with a muted thud. He waited, his hand resting on the brass knob, listening for any further movement. A faint rustle, like the turning of pages or the shifting of fabric, reached his ears. With a gentle turn, he eased the door open and slipped inside, his eyes adjusting to the dim glow of a single candle flickering on the mahogany desk. There, bathed in the candle's trembling light, stood Clara Trent, her auburn hair loose about her shoulders, her dressing gown a soft blue that shimmered faintly. She was bent over the portrait of Lord Edmund Harwood, her fingers tracing the frame with a mixture of caution and urgency. The silver button, which Poirot had left in Sir Reginald's care, was not in sight. But Clara's intent was clear. She was searching for something. Poirot cleared his throat softly, and Clara spun around, her green eyes wide with alarm. Monsieur Poirot, she gasped, her hand flying to her chest. You startled me. I couldn't sleep. This portrait, it's always fascinated me. Poirot's smile was gentle but piercing. Fascinated, mademoiselle. Or perhaps it calls to you for another reason. The button, it has stirred something in you, has it not? Clara's cheeks flushed, but her gaze held steady. I don't. "Know what you mean," she said, though her voice wavered. "I was just curious. Uncle Reginald's stories about Lord Edmund, about the family's past, they've always intrigued me. I thought, perhaps, the portrait might hold a clue." Poirot stepped closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "A clue, you say? And what do you know of this button, mademoiselle? It is no ordinary object, Nan. It has set this household in a turmoil." Clara hesitated, her fingers twisting the edge of her dressing gown. "I've heard the stories, Monsieur Poirot. Uncle says the button is tied to a hidden fortune, something Lord Edmund left behind. But he's never explained, and I wanted to know more." Poirot's moustache twitched. "A fortune, you say? And yet, the letter I found suggests something more. Perilous. You have not seen this letter, perhaps?" Her eyes widened, a flicker of genuine surprise crossing her face. "A letter? No, I know nothing of any letter. What does it say?" Poirot studied her closely, noting the quickness of her breath, the slight tremor in her hands. "It speaks of a key, mademoiselle, and a truth that could bring ruin. But come, you are young, curious. Why risk the darkness of midnight to search alone?" Clara's lips parted, then closed, as though weighing her words. "I don't trust everyone here," she admitted at last. "Uncle is frightened, Aunt Eleanor is nervous, and Charles, he's desperate. As for Dr. Vance, he's too interested in our family's past for a mere scholar. I thought if I could find something myself, I might understand what's happening." Poirot nodded, his expression softening. "Very well, mademoiselle. Return to your room. The library, it is no place for secrets to be uncovered alone. Hercule Poirot will take charge." Clara hesitated, then gave a small nod and slipped past him, her footsteps fading into the corridor. Poirot waited until he was certain she was gone before turning back to the portrait. The hidden compartment he had discovered the previous night was still there, the letter safely tucked away in his pocket. But something about Clara's presence, her furtive search, suggested the library held more secrets yet. He lit another candle from the desk, its flame casting long shadows across the room. The portrait of Lord Edmund loomed above, its stern eyes seeming to follow his every move. Poirot examined the frame again, his fingers probing for any further irregularities. The compartment had been cleverly concealed, but there was something else, a faint groove in the wood, almost invisible, running along the lower edge of the frame. With a delicate touch, he pressed against it, and a soft click echoed in the silence. A second, smaller compartment opened, barely large enough to hold a single object. Inside was a tiny brass key, its head engraved with the same crescent moon and rose emblem as the button. Poirot lifted it carefully, turning it in the candlelight. It was no ordinary key. Its craftsmanship matched the buttons, suggesting it was part of the same mystery. He slipped it into his pocket alongside the letter, his mind racing with possibilities. "The button is the key," he murmured, recalling the letter's words. "But this key, what does it unlock?" He turned his attention to the rest of the library, his little grey cells working furiously. The desk, with its faint scratch, drew him back. He examined it more closely, running his fingers along the edges until he found a concealed panel, so cleverly disguised it was nearly invisible. With a gentle push, the panel slid open, revealing a shallow drawer. Inside was a small, leather-bound notebook, its pages yellowed but intact. The handwriting was not Lord Edmund's, but that of a later hand, perhaps his son or grandson, dated 1820. The entries were brief, almost coded, but one caught Poirot's eye: the crescent and rose guard, the vault. The button opens the way, but the key seals its fate. Beware the traitor within. Poirot's eyes gleamed. A vault, a traitor, a secret that endures. This is no mere family legend. He replaced the notebook and closed the drawer, careful to leave no trace of his discovery. The library was indeed a silent witness, but it had begun to speak, its secrets unfolding like the petals of a rose. The button, the letter, the key, the notebook, each was a piece of the puzzle, but the picture remained incomplete. Who had placed the button on the carpet? Who knew of the vault, and what did they seek? As he left the library, locking the door behind him with the key Sir Reginald had provided, Poirot's thoughts turned to the household. Clara's midnight search suggested curiosity, perhaps desperation, but was it innocent? Charles, with his gambling debts, had reason to seek a hidden fortune. Lady Eleanor's nervous demeanour hinted at knowledge she dared not share, and Dr. Malcolm Vance, the historian, was too immersed in the Harwood archives for a mere academic. The servants, too, could not be dismissed Mrs. Baxter's stern authority, Grayson's impeccable reserve, Eliza's timid glances all might conceal a motive. Poirot returned to his room, the brass key and letter secure in his possession. He sat at the small writing desk, the candle casting a warm glow over his notes. The manor was a labyrinth of secrets, its inhabitants bound by ties of blood, duty, and deception. The silver button was the thread that would lead him through the maze, but it was a thread that could unravel the Harwood legacy, or worst. As the clock struck 2, Poirot extinguished the candle and lay back, his mind still active. The midnight discovery had deepened the mystery, but it had also brought him closer to the truth. The vault, the traitor, the crescent and rose, these were the keys to the secret of the silver button. And Hercule Poirot, with his little grey cells, would not rest until they were unlocked. Chapter 4. The historian's tale. The morning light filtered through the heavy drapes of Marwood Manor, casting a soft, golden haze over the breakfast room where Hercule Poirot sat, his coffee cup held with the precision of a jeweller. The aroma of freshly baked scones mingled with the faint mustiness of the old house. But Poirot's attention was fixed not on the meal but on the puzzle that consumed his little grey cells. The silver button, the cryptic letter, the brass key, and the coded notebook found in the library's hidden drawer had woven a tapestry of intrigue, each thread leading deeper into the shadows of the Harwood family's past. Today, he resolved to unravel the next strand by questioning Dr. Malcolm Vance, the historian whose scholarly demeanour seemed to mask a keener interest in the manor's secrets. Captain Hastings, seated across from him, buttered a scone with unnecessary vigour, his brow furrowed. "I say, Poirot, this business with the button and that letter, it's all a bit melodramatic, don't you think? Hidden compartments, secret vaults. It's like something out of a penny dreadful." Poirot's moustache twitched with amusement. Melodramatic, mon cher Hastings, perhaps, but the truth, it often hides behind the theatrical. The button is no mere prop. It is a key, and Dr. Vance, I suspect, knows more of its lock than he admits. Sir Reginald Harwood entered the room, his gaunt face etched with sleeplessness. "Monsieur Poirot, have you made progress?" he asked, his voice low, as though fearful of being overheard. Lady Eleanor was absent, confined to her room with a migraine, and Charles and Clara had yet to appear. The absence of the household's younger members only sharpened Poirot's curiosity. "I have made a beginning," Sir Reginald Poirot replied, his tone measured. "But to proceed, I must speak with Dr. Vance. His knowledge of your family's history may shed light on this curious affair." Sir Reginald nodded, though his eyes betrayed unease. "He's in the library, as usual." "I'll have Grayson fetch him." Poirot rose, brushing a non-existent crumb from his immaculate suit. Nan, I shall go to him. The library, it is the heart of this mystery, and I wish to observe the good doctor in his natural habitat." The library was as imposing as ever, its shelves a silent chorus of forgotten voices. Dr. Malcolm Vance sat at a long table near the window, surrounded by stacks of yellowed manuscripts and a notebook filled with meticulous annotations. His wire-rimmed spectacles glinted in the morning light, and his thin fingers trembled slightly as he turned a page. He looked up as Poirot entered, his expression one of polite surprise tinged with wariness. "Monsieur Poirot," Vance said, rising awkwardly. "I didn't expect you so early. How may I assist you?" Poirot smiled, his eyes sharp as a hawk's. "Dr. Vance, you are a scholar of the Harwood family, Nan. Your work, it brings you close to their secrets. Tell me, what do you know of this?" He produced the silver button, holding it delicately between gloved fingers, its crescent moon and rose emblem catching the light. Vance's face paled, and his hand twitched toward his spectacles, a nervous habit Poirot noted at once. "It's a fine piece," Vance said, his voice measured, likely from the late 18th century, given the style. "The crescent and rose, they're part of the Harwood crest, used by Lord Edmund and his kin. But I've not seen this particular button before." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "And yet, it appears in the library, unclaimed, in a house where no one recognizes it. You study the archives, monsieur. Have you encountered mention of such a button, perhaps tied to a family legend?" Vance hesitated, his fingers drumming lightly on the table. "There are stories, of course. Lord Edmund was a man of wealth, but his fortune was unconventional. Smuggling, some say, along the Devon coast. The button might have been a token, a sign among his associates. But it's folklore, Monsieur Poirot, not history. I've found no evidence in the papers." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "No evidence, you say? And yet, this button, it is identical to the one in Lord Edmund's portrait. A coincidence, perhaps, but Hercule Poirot does not believe in coincidences. Tell me, Dr. Vance, what do you seek in these archives? Fame, knowledge, or something more tangible?" Vance's eyes narrowed, a flicker of defensiveness crossing his face. "I'm a historian, Monsieur Poirot. My interest is academic. The Harwood papers are a treasure, trove letters, ledgers, diaries from the 18th and 19th centuries. I'm cataloguing them for the university, nothing more." Poirot nodded, though his expression suggested he was far from convinced. "And this vault, mentioned in family tales, a hidden fortune, perhaps? You have found no hint of it in your studies?" Vance's hands stilled, and for a moment his scholarly facade slipped, revealing a glint of unease. "A vault, it's a myth, like the button. Every old family has such stories. I deal in facts, not fantasies." Poirot's moustache curled slightly. "Facts, monsieur, are often the children of fantasies. One last question. Where were you the day before the button was found? In this library, perhaps?" Vance adjusted his spectacles, his voice steady but strained. "I was here, yes, Lennon, as I am most days. Sir Reginald asked me to review some documents in the afternoon. I left before dinner, and after dinner, Poirot asked, his tone deceptively mild. I retired early, Vance replied quickly. I was unwell. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Unwell, you say? Convenient, perhaps. Merci, Dr. Vance. You have been most helpful. As Vance returned to his papers, Poirot lingered by the table, his mind cataloguing the historian's reactions. The man's nervousness, his quick answers, suggested more than scholarly detachment. Poirot made a mental note to observe him further, but for now, he had other threads to pursue. Leaving the library, Poirot sought out the housemaid, Eliza, whose discovery of the button had sparked the mystery. He found her in the servants' hall, polishing silver with a distracted air. She was a slight girl, no more than 20, with a timid demeanor that vanished under Poirot's gentle questioning. Miss Eliza, he began, his voice soothing. You found the button in the library? Yes. Tell me exactly what happened. Eliza's hands trembled slightly, but her voice was clear. I was dusting, sir, early in the morning. The library was locked, but Mrs. Baxter gave me the key. I saw it on the carpet, near the desk, shining. In the light, I thought it might belong to someone, so I gave it to Sir Reginald. Poirot nodded, his eyes kind but probing. And the room, it was undisturbed. No signs of anyone having been there. No, sir, she said. Everything was in place, like always. The button was just there. Poirot thanked her and returned to the library, his thoughts turning to the notebook he had found the previous night, the coded entry, the crescent and rose guard. The vault, the button opens the way, but the key seals its fate. Beware, the traitor within suggested a deeper conspiracy. Vance's knowledge of the Harwood crest, his presence in the library, and his nervous demeanor made him a figure of interest. But Poirot sensed the historian was but one piece of a larger puzzle. He approached the desk again, examining the faint scratch he had noted earlier. The concealed drawer, containing the notebook, had been a significant find, but the scratch suggested something else, perhaps another hidden compartment or a recent attempt to access it. He ran his fingers along the desk's underside, searching for further secrets, but found none. The brass key, still in his pocket, weighed heavily on his mind. It was linked to the button, he was certain, but its purpose remained elusive as he stood, pondering. Clara Trent entered the library, her sketchbook under her arm. Monsieur Poirot, she said, her green eyes bright with curiosity, have you found anything new? I couldn't help overhearing you with Eliza. Poirot's smile was guarded. A few threads, mademoiselle, but tell me, you spend much time in this room. Have you ever noticed anything unusual about this desk? Clara frowned, stepping closer. The desk, no, but it's an old piece, from Lord Edmund's time, I think. Uncle says it's full of secrets, but he's never explained. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Secrets, you say? Then we shall keep looking. The library, it speaks, but we must listen carefully. As Clara left to sketch by the window, Poirot's thoughts returned to Dr. Vance. The historian's tale was plausible, but his unease betrayed a deeper involvement. Was he searching for the vault, driven by academic curiosity or something more personal? The letter and notebook spoke of a traitor within, and Poirot wondered if Vance's scholarly pursuit masked a more sinister motive. The morning wore on, and Poirot resolved to question the rest of the household. The silver button, the brass key, the hidden letter, and the coded notebook were pieces of a puzzle that pointed to a vaulted secret that had haunted the Harwoods for generations. Dr. Vance's tale was but one chapter in the story, and Poirot's little grey cells were determined to write the next. Chapter 5. The gardens whispered. The afternoon sun broke through the persistent Devon mist, casting dappled light across the gardens of Marwood Manor. The air was sharp with the scent of damp earth and fading roses, and a gentle breeze stirred the leaves as though the grounds themselves were whispering secrets. Hercule Poirot, his Homburg hat tilted precisely, strolled along a gravel path, his cane tapping rhythmically against the stones. The discoveries in the library, the silver button, the cryptic letter, the brass key, and the coded notebook, deepened the mystery, but they had also pointed him outward, to the wider estate where the Harwood family's past might yet reveal itself. Captain Arthur Hastings trailed behind, his practical mind struggling to keep pace with Poirot's relentless curiosity. "Really, Poirot," Hastings said, pausing to admire a bed of late-blooming dahlias, "I don't see why we're out here, tramping through the gardens. The button was found in the library, not among the rose bushes. Shouldn't we be questioning the household further?" Poirot's green eyes gleamed with amusement. "Mon cher Hastings, the library, it is but one stage in this drama. The gardens, they are the backdrop, the silent witnesses to secrets that do not speak in words, but in whispers of the earth. The crescent and rose, they are not merely symbols, they are rooted here, in this place." Hastings sighed, accustomed to Poirot's enigmatic pronouncements. "Well, I hope these whispers are clearer than that letter you found. All this talk of vaults and traitors, it's enough to make one's head spin." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Patience, my friend. The head, it spins only when the little grey cells are not in order. Come, let us see what the garden has to say." The gardens of Marwood Manor were a labyrinth of beauty and neglect. Neatly trimmed hedges gave way to overgrown thickets, and a crumbling stone fountain, its basin choked with leaves, stood as a relic of grander days. Poirot's attention was drawn to a secluded corner where Lady Eleanor Harwood knelt beside a rose bed, her frail figure swathed in a shawl, her hands trembling as she clipped a wilted bloom. Her pale face, framed by greying curls, lifted at their approach, and her eyes widened with a mixture of surprise and unease. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice soft and quavering, "I didn't expect to see you here. The gardens are my refuge, you know. The roses, they soothe me." Poirot bowed, his expression one of gentle concern. "Madame, the roses are indeed a balm, but I sense they also listen. You are troubled, Nan. This silver button, it weighs heavily on you." Lady Eleanor's fingers tightened around the pruning shears, and a rose petal fell to the ground, its crimson stark against the earth. "It's unsettling," she admitted, her eyes darting to the manor's looming silhouette. "Reginald is consumed by it. He says it's tied to a family secret, something that could ruin us. I don't know the details, but I feel its shadow." Poirot's gaze was piercing yet kind. "A shadow, madame. Tell me, what do you fear? Is it the secret itself, or the one who brought the button to light?" She hesitated, her hands trembling. "More noticeably, I don't know," she whispered. "Reginald's father. He was obsessed with the family's past, with stories of a hidden fortune. He searched for it, night after night, in the library, in the cellars. It drove him mad. He died in that library, Monsieur Poirot, alone, muttering about the crescent and rose. I fear Reginald is following the same path." Poirot's eyes narrowed, his mind cataloguing her words. The library, you say, and yet you avoid it. Why, madame? Lady Eleanor looked away, her fingers twisting the shawl. It's too cold, too full of memories. I prefer the gardens. They're alive, forgiving. The library feels like a tomb. Poirot nodded, his thoughts turning to the brass key in his pocket, its crescent and rose emblem a silent echo of the garden's blooms. And this symbol, the crescent and rose, does it hold meaning for you? She shook her head, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of recognition. It's the old Harwood crest from Lord Edmund's time. I've seen it in the archives, on seals and papers, but I know nothing of buttons or vaults. Poirot smiled, his tone soothing. Mercy, madame. Your roses, they are exquisite. Perhaps they will yet tell us more. As Lady Eleanor returned to her pruning, Poirot continued his stroll, his cane tapping a thoughtful rhythm. The garden was indeed a place of whispers, whispers of beauty, of decay, of secrets buried beneath the soil. He paused by the fountain, its cracked basin a mirror of the manor's fading glory. The notebook's words, the crescent and rose guard, the vault, suggested a physical location, and the garden, with its ancient trees and hidden corners, was a likely candidate. Hastings, Poirot said, his voice low, observe the layout of this garden. It is not random, Nan. The paths, they converge, like spokes of a wheel. And at the center, this fountain. It is old, perhaps as old as the manor itself. Hastings squinted at the fountain, its stone cherubs weathered and moss-covered. You think there's something hidden here? A vault, perhaps. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Perhaps, mon ami. But we must look with the eyes of the past. Lord Edmund, he was a man of cunning. If he hid a vault, it would not be obvious. They circled the fountain, Poirot's keen gaze scanning for any sign of the crescent and rose. The base was carved with intricate patterns, but none matched the emblem. Yet something caught his ardor, faint irregularity in the stone, a seam where none should be. He knelt, his gloved fingers tracing the edge, and felt a slight give, as though the stone could be moved. But without tools or further clues, it resisted his efforts. Curio, he murmured. This fountain, it has secrets, but it is not yet ready to speak. As they continued their walk, Poirot's thoughts turned to the household. Lady Eleanor's fear was genuine, but her reticence suggested she knew more than she admitted. Her mention of Sir Reginald's father, dying in the library, added a new layer to the mystery. Was the vault a myth, as Dr. Vance claimed, or a reality that had driven one man to madness and now threatened another? They reached a small arbor, its lattice overgrown with climbing roses, their petals a vivid crimson against the green. Poirot paused, his fingers brushing a bloom. The rose, Hastings. It is not just a flower. It is a symbol, a guardian. The crescent and rose, they are everywhere in this mystery. Hastings frowned. You're getting poetic, Poirot. What's next? Digging up the rose beds, Poirot chuckled softly. Not yet, my friend. But the garden, it whispers. We must listen. As they returned to the manor, Poirot's mind was alight with possibilities. The brass key, the notebook's warning of a traitor, Lady Eleanor's haunted demeanor, all pointed to a secret that transcended mere wealth. The garden had not yet revealed its truth, but it had spoken in its own way, urging Poirot to look. Beyond the obvious, the silver button was the key, but the garden's whisper hinted at a lock hidden in plain sight, waiting for Hercule Poirot's little grey cells to find it. Chapter 6. The The confrontation, the drawing room of Marwood Manor, glowed with the warm flicker of a fire, its light dancing across the polished surfaces of antique furniture and the strained faces of the assembled household. The evening had settled over the Devon hills like a heavy curtain, and the air within the manor was thick with tension, as though the very walls anticipated a reckoning. Hercule Poirot stood at the center of the room, his diminutive figure commanding attention with an authority that belied his size. In one gloved hand, he held the silver button, its crescent moon and rose emblem catching the firelight. In the other, the small brass key, its matching design a silent partner in the unfolding mystery. Captain Arthur Hastings stood by the fireplace, his expression a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, while Sir Reginald Harwood, Lady Eleanor, Charles Harwood, Clara Trent, and Dr. Malcolm Vance sat in a semicircle, their eyes fixed on Poirot, with varying degrees of unease. Mes amis, Poirot began, his voice calm but resonant. We are gathered here because of this. He raised the button, turning it slowly for all to see. A simple object, you might think, yet it has set this household ablaze with fear and suspicion. It is no mere trinket, Nan. It is a key to, a secret, to a truth, to a past that some among you wish to uncover, and others to bury forever. Sir. Reginald shifted in his chair, his gaunt face pale. Monsieur Poirot, you've found something, haven't you? What is it? Tell us, I beg you. Poirot's green eyes gleamed. Patience, Sir Reginald. The truth, it reveals itself in its own time. But let us begin with what we know. This button was found in the library, a room locked each night, yet it belongs to no one in this house. A letter, hidden behind Lord Edmund Harwood's portrait, speaks of a vault, a secret guarded by the crescent and rose. And this key, he held up the brass object, found in a concealed compartment, suggests that the vault is real. But there is more, a notebook, its words warning of a traitor within. Someone in this room knows more than they have said. A murmur rippled through the gathering. Lady Eleanor's hands twisted her lace handkerchief, her eyes darting to her husband. Charles Harwood's jaw tightened, his fingers drumming on the arm of his chair. Clara Trent sat forward, her green eyes bright with curiosity, while Dr. Vance adjusted his spectacles, his face a mask of scholarly detachment. Poirot turned to Charles, his gaze piercing. Monsieur Charles, you were seen in the library at night by the housemaid Eliza. What were you seeking? Speak plainly, for the time for secrets is past. Charles flushed, his handsome face contorted with defiance. I don't know what you're implying, Poirot. Yes, I was in the library looking for papers, that's all. Father's debts are piling up, and I thought there might be something in the archives, a deed or a bond, to help us. I didn't find anything, and I certainly didn't leave that blasted button. Poirot's moustache twitched. Debts, you say, a motive most compelling. A hidden fortune would be a temptation, Nan. But let us not rush to conclusions. He turned to Dr. Vance, his tone deceptively mild. And you, monsieur, the scholar of the Harwood past, your interest in the archives is intense. You claim the button is mere folklore, yet your hands tremble when it is mentioned. What do you seek in those dusty papers? Knowledge, or something more valuable? Vance's spectacles glinted as he leaned forward, his voice steady but strained. I've told you, Monsieur Poirot, I'm a historian. My work is academic. The Harwood crest, the crescent and rosettes, a minor detail in my research. If I seem nervous, It's because this house is full of shadows and suspicions. I know nothing of vaults or buttons beyond old tales. Poirot's eyes narrowed. And yet, you were in the library the day before the button was found. You retired early, unwell, you said. A convenient ailment, perhaps. Vance's face reddened, but he said nothing, his fingers clutching his notebook tightly. Poirot's gaze shifted to Clara, who met his eyes with a boldness that contrasted with the other's unease. Mademoiselle Clara, you, too, have been drawn to the library, searching in the dead of night. You spoke of curiosity, of family stories. But is there more? A desire to uncover the vault, perhaps, or to protect it? Clara's lips parted, then closed, as though weighing her response. I've told you, Monsieur Poirot, I'm curious. Uncle's stories about Lord Edmund, about a hidden fortune, they've always fascinated me. I found a journal in the attic, written by Lord Edmund's wife, Annabel. It mentions a vault, but not its location. I thought the portrait might hold a clue, but I found nothing. Poirot's smile was enigmatic. A journal, you say? Most interesting. And you, Lady Eleanor? He turned to the frail woman, whose eyes were wide with fear. You spoke of your father-in-law's madness, his obsession with the crescent and rose. What do you know of this? Secret. Lady Eleanor's voice was barely a whisper. I know only what I've told you, Monsieur Poirot. Reginald's father died searching for it in that library. He spoke of shame, of a truth that could destroy us. I begged Reginald to let it be, but now this button, it's brought it all back. Poirot nodded, his mind cataloguing each reaction, the flush of Charles's cheeks, the tremor in Vance's hands, the boldness in Clara's gaze, the fear in Lady Eleanor's eyes. Sir Reginald, silent until now, spoke up, his voice hoarse. Monsieur Poirot, what does it mean? Is this a threat? A warning? Poirot paced slowly before the fire, the button and key still in his hands. It means, Sir Reginald, that someone in this house or perhaps beyond it knows of the vault and wishes it found, or fears its discovery. The button was placed in the library, not by accident, but with purpose. The letter, the key, the notebook, they point to a secret that has haunted your family for generations. But there is one word that echoes above all, traitor. The notebook warns of a traitor within. Who among you, I wonder, plays that role? A heavy silence fell, broken only by the crackle of the fire. Charles stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. This is nonsense. You're accusing us all, Poirot. And for what? A button and some old papers. I've had enough of this. He stormed toward the door, but Poirot's voice stopped him cold. Remain, Monsieur Charles. Running, it solves nothing. The truth, it will find you, whether you stay or flee. Charles hesitated, then sank back into his chair, his face sullen. Poirot turned to the group, his expression grave. I propose a plan, Mies Amos. The journal Mademoiselle Clara found, it speaks of a vault. The key I hold, it is part of the puzzle. Tomorrow we shall search for this vault together, but be warned, the truth, it is not always kind. As the household dispersed, their faces a mixture of fear, defiance, and curiosity, Hastings approached Poirot, his voice low. You're stirring the pot, old chap. Do you really think one of them is a traitor? Poirot's eyes gleamed in the firelight. A traitor, Hastings? Perhaps, or perhaps the traitor is the past itself, reaching out to claim the present. The garden whispered to us today, and the library has spoken. Tomorrow, we shall listen to the manor itself. He slipped the button and key into his pocket, his mind alight with the threads of the mystery. The confrontation had revealed much motives, fears, half-truths, but the heart of the secret remained hidden. The vault, the traitor, the crescent and rose, these were the keys to the puzzle, and Hercule Poirot was determined to unlock them, no matter the cost. Chapter 7. The Vault Revealed. The morning dawned grey and heavy over Marwood Manor. The Devon sky, a canvas of brooding clouds that mirrored the tension within the old house. Hercule Poirot stood in the great hall, his immaculate suit a stark contrast to the weathered portraits of Harwood ancestors glaring down from the walls. The silver button and brass key rested in his pocket, their crescent moon and rose emblems a constant reminder of the mystery that had gripped the household. The cryptic letter, the coded notebook, Lady Eleanor's haunted whispers, and Clara's attic journal had all pointed to a hidden vault, a secret buried by Lord Edmund Harwood, one that promised either salvation or ruin. Today, Poirot intended to find it. Captain Arthur Hastings joined him, his face etched with both curiosity and skepticism. "I say, Poirot," he said, adjusting his tie, "this vault business feels like a wild goose chase. Are you sure that journal Clara found isn't just some old family fantasy?" Poirot's green eyes sparkled with determination. "Mon cher Hastings, the fantasies of a family are often their truths in disguise. The journal, the letter, the key, they are not mere stories. They are signposts to a secret that has driven men to madness. Come, we have work to do." Clara Trent had shared the journal's contents with Poirot the previous evening, after the confrontation in the drawing room. Written by Annabel Harwood, Lord Edmund's wife, in 1795. It described a vault hidden beneath the manor's chapel, accessible only through a mechanism tied to the crescent and rose. The button opens the way, the journal read, and the key seals its truth. Seek the stone where the moon and rose meet. The chapel, a crumbling structure in the manor's overgrown grounds, was their destination. Poirot gathered Sir Reginald, Clara, and Hastings, leaving Lady Eleanor, Charles, and Dr. Vance behind at Sir Reginald's insistence. "Eleanor is too frail for this," he said, his voice tight, "and Charles and Vance. I'd rather keep them where I can see them." Poirot noted the suspicion in his tone, but said nothing, merely nodding as they set out. The chapel stood at the edge of the gardens, its weathered stone walls cloaked in ivy, its stained glass windows dulled by time. The air was damp, carrying the scent of moss and decay, and the iron gate creaked ominously as Sir Reginald pushed it open. Inside, the chapel was a hollow shell, its pews warped, its altar bare save for a tarnished candelabrum. A faint chill hung in the air, as though the past lingered in the shadows. Poirot's eyes scanned the space, his mind recalling the journal's words. "Seek the stone where the moon and rose meet," he murmured, moving toward the altar. The floor was laid with uneven flagstones, some inscribed with faded symbols. Clara, her sketchbook tucked under her arm, pointed to a large slab near the altar's base. "There," she said, her voice hushed. "Look at the carving." The slab bore a faint etching of a crescent moon entwined with a rose, its lines worn, but unmistakable. Poirot knelt, his gloved fingers tracing the design. "This is it, Mrs. Amos," he said, his voice steady. "The button and key, they are meant for this place." He produced the silver button, its emblem a perfect match for the carving. With a gentle press, he fitted it into a small, circular indentation at the slab center. A faint click echoed. in the silent chapel, but nothing moved. Poirot's moustache twitched, and he turned to the brass key, its head engraved with the same symbol. Near the indentation was a narrow slot, barely visible in the stone's weathered surface. He inserted the key and turned it slowly. A low grinding sound filled the air, and the slab shuddered, sliding aside to reveal a spiral staircase descending into darkness. Hastings gasped. "Good heavens, Poirot, you've done it." Sir Reginald's face was ashen. "The vault. It's real. My father was right." Clara's eyes were wide with awe. "What's down there, Monsieur Poirot?" Poirot's expression was grave. "We shall see, mademoiselle. But beware the truth. It is not always kind." They lit lanterns from the manor stores, their flickering light casting eerie shadows as they descended the narrow stairs. The air grew colder, heavier, with the musty scent of long-sealed stone. The staircase ended in a small, damp chamber, its walls rough-hewn and unmarked, save for a single iron-bound chest at the center. The chest's lid bore the crescent and rose, and a lock that matched the brass key's design. Poirot handed the key to Sir Reginald. "This is your family's secret, monsieur. The honor is yours." Sir Reginald's hands trembled as he inserted the key and turned it. The lock clicked, and the chest opened with a groan, revealing its contents: stacks of gold coins, glittering jewels, and a leather-bound ledger, its pages brittle with age. But there was more: a folded parchment, sealed with wax, bearing the crescent and rose. Poirot carefully unfolded it, his eyes scanning the tight, angular script. It was a confession, written by Lord Edmund Harwood in 1793. "I, Edmund Harwood," it began, "confess to the murder of James Ridley, my partner in trade. He sought to betray our enterprise, to reveal our smuggling to the crown. The vault hides our gains, but also our shame. The crescent and rose guard it, and I pray no Harwood shall suffer for my sin." Sir Reginald sank to his knees, his voice a whisper. "Murder, my God." Clara's face was pale, but her eyes burned with fascination. "So it wasn't just a fortune, it was blood money." Poirot nodded, his expression somber. The button, the key, the vault, they were not meant to be found. Lord Edmund hid his crime, but someone in this house, or beyond it, knew enough to bring the button to light. Hastings, peering into the chest, shook his head. But who? Poirot. And why now? Poirot's eyes gleamed in the lantern light. That, mon ami, is the question. The notebook spoke of a traitor within. Perhaps they sought the fortune, or perhaps they sought to expose the truth. We must return to the manor and face the household once more. They closed the chest, leaving its contents undisturbed, and ascended the staircase, the slab grinding shut behind them. The chapel was silent once more, its secret briefly unveiled but far from resolved. As they emerged into the grey daylight, Poirot's mind was alight with possibilities. The vault had been revealed, but the traitor remained hidden, their motives as murky as the Devon mist. The silver button had opened the way, but the truth it guarded was a blade that could cut deep. And Poirot knew the final act of this drama was yet to come. Chapter 8. The Truth Unveiled. The drawing-room of Marwood Manor was steeped in a heavy silence, broken only by the crackle of the fire and the distant moan of the wind sweeping across the Devon hills. The late afternoon light filtered through the tall windows, casting long shadows that seemed to dance with the weight of the secrets now laid bare. Hercule Poirot stood before the assembled household, his small, fastidious figure radiating an authority that commanded every eye in his gloved hand, he held the silver button and the brass key, their crescent moon and rose emblems glinting like accusations in the firelight. Beside him, Captain Arthur Hastings stood, his face a mixture of awe and unease, while the contents of the vault, gold coins, jewels, a ledger, and Lord Edmund Harwood's chilling confession, rested on a table, covered by a cloth but looming. Large in the room's tense atmosphere, Sir Reginald Harwood sat rigid, his gaunt face ashen, his eyes fixed on the covered table. Lady Eleanor, frail and trembling, clutched her lace handkerchief, her gaze darting nervously between her husband and Poirot. Charles Harwood slouched in his chair, his handsome features taut with defiance, while Clara Trent's green eyes burned with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Dr. Malcolm Vance, the historian, adjusted his spectacles repeatedly, his scholarly composure fraying at the edges. Mies Amos, Poirot began, his voice calm but resonant. The secret of the silver button is no longer a mystery. The vault beneath the chapel has been opened. Its contents revealed a fortune in gold and jewels, a ledger of illicit trade, and a confession from Lord Edmund Harwood, admitting to the murder of his partner, James Ridley, to protect their smuggling empire. The crescent and rose, they were the guardians of this shame, and the button and key, they were the means to unlock it. But one question remains: who placed the button in the library, and why? A murmur rippled through the room, and Sir Reginald's voice broke the silence, hoarse with dread. Monsieur Poirot, you mean to say someone in this house knew of the vault? Someone brought this to light? Poirot's green eyes gleamed. Precisement, Sir Reginald. The button did not appear by chance. It was placed with purpose, to stir fear, to provoke action, or to expose a truth long buried. Let us examine the threads of this puzzle. He turned to Charles, his gaze piercing. Monsieur Charles, your debts are no secret. A fortune hidden in the manor would be a temptation. Nan, you were seen in the library at night, searching. Was it the vault you sought, or did you know of the button's significance? Charles's face flushed, his hands clenching into fists. I've told you, Poirot. I was looking for papers, anything to help with the debts. I didn't know about any vault or button until father made a fuss. Accuse me if you like, but I'm no traitor. Poirot's mustache twitched. Traitor, you say? A curious choice of word, for the notebook warned of a traitor within. But let us move on. He turned to Dr. Vance, whose fingers trembled as he adjusted his spectacles. You, monsieur, are a scholar of the Harwood past. Your research brought you to the archives, to the very heart of this mystery. You claimed the button was mere folklore, yet your unease betrays you. Did you seek the vault, perhaps to claim its riches for yourself? Vance's voice was sharp, defensive. I'm a historian, not a treasure hunter. I study documents, not myths. If I knew of the vault, why would I stay here, cataloguing papers? For months, I had no part in this. Poirot's smile was enigmatic. And yet, you were in the library the day before the button was found, and your illness that night was convenient. Knowledge, monsieur, is a powerful motive, as powerful as gold. He turned to Clara, whose boldness had not wavered. Mademoiselle. Clara, your curiosity led you to the library at midnight, to the journal of Annabel Harwood. You spoke of family stories, but was it curiosity alone? Did you place the button, perhaps to force the truth into the open? Clara's eyes widened, but she held his gaze. I found the journal, yes, and I searched the library because I wanted answers. But I didn't place the button, I swear it. I only wanted to know what Uncle was so afraid of." Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable, and finally turned to Lady Eleanor, whose frail figure seemed to shrink under his scrutiny. "Madame, you spoke of your father-in-law's madness, his obsession with the crescent and rose. You feared the button's discovery, did you not? What do you know of this secret?" Lady Eleanor's voice was a whisper, her hands twisting the handkerchief until it threatened to tear. "I knew only what Reginald's father told me, stories of shame, of a truth that could destroy us. When the button appeared, I feared it would drive Reginald to the same fate. I wanted it gone, forgotten." Poirot paced slowly before the fire, the button and key still in his hands. And yet, the button was not forgotten. Someone placed it in the library, knowing it would stir this storm. The letter spoke of a truth that could bring ruin. The notebook warned of a traitor within. But who is this traitor? Let us consider the facts. He paused, his eyes sweeping the room. The library was locked each night, the key in Sir Reginald's possession. The button appeared on the carpet, unclaimed, yet identical to the one in Lord Edmund's portrait. The letter and key were hidden, yet found by Hercule Poirot. The journal, discovered by Mademoiselle Clara, pointed to the vault. And the vault itself, it revealed not only wealth, but a confession of murder. This is no accident, Mies Amos. This is a design. He turned to Sir Reginald, his voice softening. "Sir Reginald, you summoned me because you feared the button's secret, but I believe you know more than you have said. The letter, the notebook, they speak of shame, of a family legacy tainted by crime. Did you place the button, perhaps, to end the secrecy, to face the past?" Sir Reginald's face crumpled, and he shook his head. "No, Monsieur Poirot. I swear I didn't. When Eliza found it, I was terrified. My father's madness, his death, it all came rushing back. I only wanted to protect my family." Poirot's gaze shifted to Lady Eleanor, and a sudden clarity sparked in his eyes. "Madame, you said you wanted the button gone. But what if you placed it, not to hide the secret, but to reveal it, to force your husband to confront the truth, to end the shadow that has haunted your family?" Lady Eleanor gasped, her handkerchief falling to the floor. "No, I would never tell him." But Sir Reginald's eyes were wide, his voice barely audible. "Eleanor, did you?" Tears streamed down her face as she shook her head. "I didn't, I swear. But I knew of the vault. Reginald's father told me years ago, before he died. He said it was cursed, that the truth would destroy us. I kept silent to protect us all." Poirot's expression softened, but his voice was firm. "And yet, the button was found. If not you, then who?" He turned to the room, his eyes narrowing. "There is one among you who has not been questioned fully, the one who found the button." He gestured to the door, where Eliza, the housemaid, stood, summoned by Grayson at Poirot's earlier request. She was pale, her hands clasped tightly, her eyes wide with fear. "Miss Eliza Poirot," said gently, "you found the button on the library carpet. But tell me, did you place it there?" Eliza's voice trembled. "No, sir, I swear, I only found it when I was dusting. I didn't know what it was." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "And yet, you have access to the library under Mrs. Baxter's key. You are young, perhaps impressionable. Did someone ask you to place it, to stir this household into chaos?" Eliza's eyes filled with tears, and she shook her head vehemently. But Poirot's little grey cells were at work, piecing together the final threads. "Mies Amos," he said, turning to the room, "the traitor is not one person, but the past itself." The button was placed by someone outside this household, someone who knew of the vault and wished to expose it. I have made inquiries through my contacts, and I have learned of a descendant of James Ridley, the man Lord Edmund murdered. This descendant, a solicitor in Exeter, has long sought to reclaim what was stolen from his ancestor. The button, it was his message, left through a servant's indiscretion, perhaps a bribe to Eliza, who may not have known its significance. Eliza sobbed, but Poirot raised a hand. "Fear not, mademoiselle. You were a pawn, not a player. The fortune will go to the authorities. The confession will clear the Harwood name of its shame, and the traitor's shadow will fade." As the household absorbed his words, Sir Reginald stood, his voice steady at last. "Monsieur Poirot, you've saved us. The truth. It's painful, but it's free." Poirot bowed slightly. "The truth, Sir Reginald, is always free, but it demands courage. The silver button has spoken, and the vault is silent once more." As the fire burned low, Poirot slipped the button and key into his pocket, his little grey cells at rest. The mystery of Marwood Manor was solved, but its echoes would linger, a testament to the past's unyielding grip and the power of truth unveiled. The end.